They were lost in the wilderness, but one fearless mother showed them the true meaning of family. The forest stood in a heavy, haunting silence as the final slivers of sunlight pierced the dense canopy, stretching long, skeletal shadows across the leaf-littered ground. Hunter, a massive, battle-worn mastiff with deep amber eyes, limped through the tangled underbrush. His once formidable physique had withered from weeks of hunger, each rib protruding like sharp ridges beneath his matted, dirt-caked fur, a living emblem of the brutal solitude he'd endured. Desperation honed his senses to a razor's edge. Every whisper of shifting leaves, every faint flutter stirred a flicker of hope that something, anything, might quiet the gnawing emptiness clawing at his insides. But the forest offered only silence and shadows. Then something new drifted to him on the wind, faint at first, so faint it nearly vanished beneath the rich, loamy scent of earth. But with every step it grew. It wasn't prey, no, this was different, strange, yet undeniably alive. Hunter halted, ears pricked, nostrils flared. He strained to isolate it, and then he heard it, a sound so soft it might have been mistaken for the wind slipping through the trees. But it wasn't. It was a cry, thin, high-pitched, and trembling with helplessness. A sound that pierced deeper than instinct, striking something long dormant within him. He moved low, silent and deliberate, his hulking frame blending with the undergrowth. His amber eyes swept the forest ahead, every muscle taut, alert for danger. The cries became clearer, more urgent, guiding him to the edge of a small, shadow-drenched clearing, and there, cradled in a bed of roots beneath a towering oak, lay the source. A baby, swaddled clumsily in a mud-stained crimson blanket, the infant's tiny fists thrashed weakly as it wailed into the deepening dusk. Hunter froze, his gaze locked on the trembling figure. Instincts warred within him. Hunger growled with ferocity, urging him to leave, to turn back, to ignore the fragile creature and focus on survival. But something older, quieter, and far stronger held him fast. He inched closer, his paws crunching gently over brittle leaves. The baby's cries faltered, as if it too sensed his presence. Hunter's nose twitched. He sniffed the air, tilting his head, curiosity sparking in those watchful amber eyes. For a long, breathless moment he simply stared, uncertain, torn. Then impossibly, he made a choice. Lowering himself slowly to the ground, Hunter curled his worn, powerful body around the infant. His fur brushed the edges of the blanket as he nestled close, shielding the child with every ounce of warmth he had left. The soft rise and fall of the baby's chest against his own stirred something strange within him. Something that felt like meaning. A quiet whine escaped his throat, gentle and low. Hunger faded, pushed aside by a deeper need. The wild creature, shaped by pain, loss, and survival, had chosen not to abandon, but to protect. As night closed in and cold crept through the forest like a phantom, Hunter stayed alert. Wind hissed through the trees, carrying with it the distant howls of predators. But he didn't move, didn't sleep. His massive frame formed a barrier, a wall between the baby and the cruel night. The child whimpered softly now, its breath shallow and rhythmic. Hunter's eyes never stopped scanning the dark, ears twitching at every snap of twig or whisper of wind. He knew this world too well, this place where only the strong endured and the weak were forgotten. Not tonight. But tonight, something had shifted. He wasn't fighting solely for himself anymore. He was guarding something far more delicate than his own battered flesh. The baby stirred with a faint murmur, and Hunter instinctively lowered his massive head, his nose brushing the tiny bundle. The scent was unfamiliar, earthy, cloth-wrapped innocence. Strange, yes, but not unpleasant. He nudged the blanket tighter around the child, not from comprehension, but from something older, deeper. Instinct. A primal force surged within him, stronger than hunger, more urgent than fatigue. The need to protect eclipsed every wound and every pang. Hours crawled by, the night creeping deeper into the bones of the forest. Then, movement. A rustle in the bushes. Hunter's ears shot up, his body tensing like a drawn bow. His lips peeled back in a silent snarl as he stepped forward, shielding the infant with his own body, eyes locked on the shadows beyond. A low growl answered. Then another. Glowing eyes emerged from the underbrush, one pair, then two, then more. A small pack of wolves, their bodies sleek with hunger, circled the clearing. Their gait was cautious, predatory, calculating. Hunter didn't flinch. His growl deepened, chest vibrating with raw defiance. He was outnumbered, wounded, weak, but none of that mattered. He was the line between this helpless child and the wild. The first wolf lunged, jaws gaping for Hunter's flank. With a guttural snarl, Hunter twisted, colliding with the attacker mid-air. His teeth sank into the wolf's shoulder, forcing a startled yelp as it stumbled back. Another came from the side, faster, craftier, but Hunter struck with a massive paw, sending it crashing into the underbrush. The clearing erupted into chaos. Blood smeared his fur. His breath came in ragged bursts. Pain pulsed through every limb. Still, Hunter stood his ground, a furious blur of muscle and instinct, refusing to yield. Then, silence. One by one, the wolves withdrew, their glowing eyes vanishing into the trees like embers snuffed out in the dark. Hunter stood, panting, trembling, bloodied but unbowed. He turned back to the baby, still there, still untouched. The infant blinked up at him, its face barely visible beneath the folds of the blanket. He nudged it softly. His warm breath met delicate skin. The baby stirred. A tiny, breathy sound escaped its lips, almost like gratitude. Though the wind still howled through the trees, something inside Hunter quieted. A thread, fragile but unbreakable, now bound them. But this clearing was no longer safe. Hunter knew they couldn't stay. He let out a low, anxious whine, then carefully grasped the edge of the blanket between his teeth. Lifting the infant with painstaking gentleness, he stepped forward, each movement slow, deliberate. His body screamed with pain, but he pressed on. The scent of water danced on the air. He followed it. Through thickets and shadows, the forest opened into a moonlit glade, where a slender stream flowed, glistening like silver ribbon. Hunter laid the baby gently on a bed of moss, his eyes scanning for threats, even as exhaustion clawed at him. He lowered his head to the stream, drinking deeply. The cold water soothed his throat, gave strength to his limbs. Then returning to the baby, he dipped his muzzle again, lapping up water and pressing his tongue to the child's lips. A twitch, a stir, a faint breath. The baby was still fighting. Hunter gave a soft, low whine, something like relief. Against everything, the child endured, but this peace was only temporary. The forest would not grant them safety for long. His gaze swept the horizon. Then, there, hidden beneath a veil of vines and darkness, a silhouette, a cabin, old and crumbling, but shelter nonetheless. It wasn't much, but it was enough. With fresh resolve, Hunter lifted the child once more. His limbs were heavy, battered, and torn. But the weight he carried was more than flesh and bone. It was a fragile life, and it was now his to protect. From the shadows, like phantoms slipping through fog, they emerged. One of them stepped forward, its eyes locked on the bundle of blankets behind Hunter. Saliva glistened on its bared fangs, catching the moonlight like a blade. The primal urge to protect surged through Hunter, stronger than the pain lancing through his body, stronger than the exhaustion anchoring his limbs. The lead wolf lunged. Its jaws snapped shut just inches from Hunter's face, but Hunter met it with a thunderous snarl. He countered with the full force of his weight, powerful jaws clamping down on the attacker's shoulder. With a violent twist, he hurled the beast against the far wall, where it crumpled in a heap. No time to breathe. Another wolf darted in from the side, fangs aimed for his exposed flank. Hunter pivoted with a snarl, landing a crushing blow with his forepaw that sent the second attacker skidding across the dusty floor. Pain tore through his side. Old wounds reopened. Fresh blood warmed his fur. Still he fought, not for survival alone, but for the tiny life nestled behind him. The cabin exploded into chaos. Growls and yelps clashed with the crash of colliding bodies. Dust and debris swirled in the pale shafts of moonlight that pierced through the shattered windows. Each time Hunter repelled an attacker, another rose to take its place. The wolves circled, relentless, their eyes glinting like cold stars. He was outnumbered. His muscles trembled with each lunge, each twist, each defensive strike. Blood slicked the floor beneath him, but Hunter would not yield. With every breath, with every furious blow, he held the line. The wolves came, and the wolves were driven back, again and again, until finally they broke. Bloodied and limping, the pack withdrew. One by one, their glowing eyes vanished into the forest, like fading embers swallowed by darkness. Silence fell. Hunter stood at the center of the cabin, panting, trembling. His sides heaved with each labored breath. Blood matted his fur. Pain pulsed through every inch of his body, but he turned immediately toward the baby. His heart thundered as he limped to the child, every step sheer agony. He nudged the blanket with his nose, fear gnawing at his resolve. The baby stirred, tiny fingers curled. A soft breath rose and fell. Unharmed, a quiet whine escaped Hunter's throat, half relief, half disbelief. He lowered himself once more beside the infant, curling his battered body protectively around the fragile warmth. Though his eyes closed, his ears twitched with every sound. His instincts screamed for vigilance. This was only a pause. The danger hadn't passed. The forest was unyielding. But for now, they were alive, and that was enough. As dawn broke, the first golden rays spilled through the broken glass, painting the room in warm golden light. Hunter stirred, groaning softly as his limbs protested. He rose with great effort, every movement a battle against pain. The baby shifted in its sleep, tiny hands reaching instinctively toward the warmth of the light. Hunter watched, his amber eyes dulled with exhaustion, but sharpened with purpose. This journey was far from over. The forest would not forgive weakness, and the child, this delicate, breathing spark of life, needed more than a protector. It needed a future. Hunter turned and stepped through the cabin door, the morning sun brushing across his battered frame. He hesitated, glancing back once at the small form swaddled in blankets. A quiet whimper reached his ears. He forced himself forward. He had to find food, water, hope. The forest was quieter in daylight, but every rustle, every crackle beneath the leaves set his nerves alight. His nose worked tirelessly, scanning for prey, for water, for anything that would give them another day. Then, moisture. A scent, so faint it might have been memory. He followed it. Through bramble and brush, his paws sinking into damp earth, until he came upon a stream trickling between moss-covered stones. The gentle rush of water was music, pure, steady, alive. Hunter paused. He scanned the clearing, his ears pivoting like radar. Nothing, no danger, no threats. He drank. Cool water washed over his tongue, soothing his parched throat. The relief was brief, but welcome. He had what he came for. But time was short. There was still a baby waiting in that cabin, and Hunter wasn't done fighting for its life. The cool stream soothed Hunter's throat, the water washing away the dryness clinging to his tongue. For a brief moment, the weight of exhaustion eased. His body sagged slightly, allowing the sun-dappled quiet of the forest to settle over him like a fragile blanket of peace. But it didn't last. A sharp gust carried an unfamiliar scent to his nose, metallic and acrid, cutting through the rich, earthy aroma of pine and damp soil. His ears flattened instinctively. Danger. Hunter lifted his head. He stood still, muscles coiled, amber eyes scanning the trees. The scent grew stronger, beckoning him away from the stream and deeper into the thicket. He moved silently, each step deliberate, his paws barely brushing the forest floor. The trees thickened, the underbrush clung to his fur, the sun dimmed beneath a canopy of tangled branches. Then he saw it. Scattered across the clearing were scraps of fabric, torn, weathered, and unmistakably human. A makeshift campsite sat abandoned, half swallowed by nature. The fire pit still smouldered faintly, ashes curling in the breeze like ghosts refusing to leave. But the smell. The metallic tang was no longer faint. It was heavy now, fresh, blood. Hunter's nose twitched, The scent of multiple humans lingered, layered beneath the sharper odor of predators. No bodies, no voices, just silence and a scene that whispered of violence. His hackles rose. The ground bore the signs of chaos, footprints, some small, others heavy, and claw marks etched into the soil. A struggle had happened here. Violent, fast. Hunter stepped carefully, his mind tracing the fragments left behind. The blood, the scattered belongings, the torn tent flap, half buried in leaves. Something had torn through this place. He caught a faint scent of wolves, but there was something else too, bigger, wilder. He stared into the dense foliage beyond the clearing, expecting to see glowing eyes peering from the shadows. Nothing moved, but the danger lingered in the stillness. And then came the realization, heavy and sudden. This could have been the baby's fate. Left alone in this merciless forest, it would have stood no chance. Hunter's breath hitched in his throat. The thought hollowed him. That child, so fragile, so small, could have been another torn blanket, another scent lost to the wind, but he had found it, protected it, chosen it. His gaze swept once more across the ruined camp. A sobering truth settled into his bones. This world would not hesitate. It would take everything if given the chance. Hunter's chest rose slowly, then fell. His resolve deepened like roots burrowing into the earth. He turned back the way he came, the scent of blood still thick in the air. But it no longer mattered. What mattered waited in a crumbling cabin, a heartbeat wrapped in a blanket. He would get them through this, somehow, because now he understood something even deeper than instinct. He wasn't just a protector, he was all the baby had. It was for the baby. Everything, every scar, every breath, every drop of blood spilled in the night was for that fragile life wrapped in blankets on the dusty floor. Hunter turned, limping toward the bundle. His legs trembled beneath him, his body screaming for rest, but he lowered his head with the gentlest care. His nose brushed the edge of the fabric. Movement. The infant stirred, its tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythm so soft it barely stirred the air. Relief surged through Hunter like a wave too big to contain. A whine escaped his throat, low, aching, raw. Not just sound, gratitude, love, hope. He curled his battered body around the child, sheltering it with what little strength remained. His breathing slowed, but rest never came. His eyes closed, but sleep refused him. The silence of the cabin settled once more, deep and still. Only the baby's steady breathing and the faint creaks of aging timber interrupted the hush. The storm had passed, but peace was an illusion. Hunter knew the truth. The woods did not forget. The forest did not forgive. This moment would not last. Yet in that sliver of stillness, with the child nestled against his side and the blood drying in his fur, Hunter allowed himself a truth more powerful than fear. They were alive. And for now, that was enough. Dawn arrived like a whisper. Golden light spilled through the broken windows, soft and warm, casting the ruined cabin in a sacred glow. Dust motes floated in the sunbeams like tiny blessings from the sky. The baby shifted in its sleep, one delicate hand reaching instinctively toward the light. Hunter watched in silence. His amber eyes, dulled by exhaustion but sharpened by something deeper, stayed fixed on the child. There was more than weariness in that gaze. There was promise, resolve. This baby didn't just need shelter from the wolves. It needed more: water, food, a future, a place where the forest couldn't find them, a home. Hunter's resolve tightened like a knot in his chest. He would find it, whatever it took. His body protested as he rose, each movement pulling on torn muscle and bruised bone. But he pushed forward, stepping into the forest once more. Morning bird song greeted him, light and lilting, but he heard only the warning in every sound. The forest was never truly quiet, never truly safe. Hunter followed his nose, chasing a faint thread of moisture carried on the breeze. It led him over fallen logs, through dense underbrush, and finally to a small stream threading its way between moss-covered rocks. He approached slowly, ears swiveling with practiced vigilance. Nothing stirred. Then, water. He drank deeply, the coolness soothing his burning throat, easing the fire that clung to his ribs. For one fleeting moment it felt like healing. But then it came, again. That scent, wrong, sharp, metallic, blood. Hunter froze. He lifted his head, nose twitching, ears sharp. He followed it, through brambles and thorns, deeper into the forest's shadowy belly, until he found it, an abandoned campsite, silent and broken. Fabric, torn, stained, and scattered like fallen leaves. The fire pit, still warm with the memory of flames, flickered with dying embers. The air was thick with it now. Blood, sweat, fear. Human scents mingled with something more feral. Claw marks scored the ground, wild and erratic. Footprints overlapped and vanished into the dirt. There had been a struggle here, and it hadn't ended. Well, Hunter's body tensed. His eyes scanned the tree line, half expecting to see glowing eyes watching from the brush. Nothing, just the silence after violence. But in that silence came clarity. This could have been the baby's fate, left alone, unprotected, just another shattered story claimed by the wild. A tremor ran through him. Not from fear, but from the weight of understanding. If he hadn't found the child, if he had arrived moments later. Hunter lowered his head, the truth pressing down on him like the forest canopy, heavy, vast, and inescapable. That child was not just his responsibility, it was his redemption, and he would carry that weight into the heart of the world for as long as it took. And then Hunter stood taller. His resolve, once fragile, now hardened like ancient stone. This child, this tiny spark of life, would not become another forgotten tragedy. Not while there was breath left in his body, not while strength lingered in his bones. He couldn't allow it. Not for the baby, not for anyone. Hunter's nose swept over the ruined campsite once more. Ashes crumbled beneath his snout, torn scraps of cloth whispered stories of desperate flight, and shattered gear lay abandoned like relics of a lost battle. His desperate paws uncovered a small satchel, cracked open and spilling its meager contents onto the forest floor. Carefully, Hunter nosed through the scattered fragments. Scraps of food, stale, faded, but still edible. A dented, battered metal flask with just a few precious drops of water left inside. Clenching the satchel gently in his jaws, Hunter turned back toward the cabin, each step quickened by urgency. The echoes of blood and violence lingered heavy in his mind, but he shoved the memory aside. The baby needed him. When Hunter returned, the child was awake. Tiny cries pierced the thick silence, sharp and fragile, filling the cabin with fragile sound. Hunter approached slowly, lowering the satchel beside the infant and settling down with careful warmth. The baby's cries softened, soothed by his presence. With gentle nudges, he tipped the flask just enough to let cool drops touch the infant's lips. Not much, but enough for now. The day wore on like a cautious breath held tight. Hunter remained vigilant, haunted by the ghost of that abandoned campsite. Whatever had torn that place apart still prowled somewhere in the shadows. Every whisper of wind, every crack of twig set his senses blazing. His eyes flicked constantly to the forest beyond the broken windows, watching, waiting. But here, beside him, the baby rested, small, fragile, breathing steady and soft. As night crept in, the forest awoke once more. Distant howls echoed, low, mournful, a chilling reminder that the danger had not passed. Hunter's muscles tensed. He rose, planting himself near the cabin entrance, amber eyes piercing the darkness. He would not let anything harm the child, not while breath still filled his lungs. The wolves were close, their presence thick in the air, oppressive, silent, waiting. Hunter let out a deep, warning growl, a low sound like thunder rolling through the trees. This place is off limits. Behind him, the baby stirred. Hunter glanced back, his heart swelling with a fierce protective fire. For now, this battered cabin was all they had, a fragile haven in a ruthless wilderness. But it was not enough. He would find more, a real home, a place where the baby could be safe. Hunter stood at the threshold, eyes gleaming faintly in the moonlight, filtering through cracks in the weathered wood. The weight of his purpose settled on him like a mantle. He had fought countless battles before, but this fight, it was different. This wasn't mere survival. This was hope, fragile, unbreakable, and he would fight with everything he had. Then he heard it, a faint rustling in the underbrush. Soft at first, almost a whisper blending with the breeze, but growing, more deliberate, closer. Hunter's body tensed, his amber eyes narrowed, his nose flared, catching the unmistakable scent. Wolves, multiple, their musky scent mingled with damp earth, sharp and alive. Hunter's lips curled back in a silent snarl. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. Behind him the baby stirred, but did not wake. The steady rise and fall of that small chest reminded him what was at stake. Hunter turned, eyes locked on the bundle of blankets. He couldn't let them in. The cabin was their last defense, and he was the only guardian left. Then, out of the shadows, a shape appeared. The first wolf stepped into the clearing, its eyes glowing like embers in the moonlight. Lean, large, dark fur, matted and bristling with hunger. Another followed, then another. They moved with slow, stalking grace, silent, coordinated. Hunter stepped forward. He planted himself firmly between the door and the pack. His growl deepened, became a fierce, cutting snarl that shattered the night stillness. The wolves paused, their eyes locked on him. A breathless moment passed, as if they weighed him, measured him. Then the largest stepped ahead, ears flattened, lips pulled back, teeth bared in a silent, deadly warning. Hunter braced himself. The lead wolf lunged, their bodies collided in a whirlwind of fur and muscle. Hunter met the first wolf head-on, jaws snapping fiercely onto its shoulder. A sharp, pained yelp pierced the night. From the side, another wolf lunged, teeth grazing Hunter's hind leg. He twisted with raw power, his massive frame throwing the attacker off balance. Chaos exploded, snarls ripped through the air, howls echoed like thunder, fur tore, teeth clashed. Hunter fought with a ferocity fueled by desperation and an unbreakable promise. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a sacred vow to protect innocence itself. He slammed into one wolf with crushing force, sending it sprawling. Another leapt through the air, only to be caught mid-flight and slammed hard into the ground. But the pack kept coming, relentless, coordinated. Their growls merged into a haunting symphony of menace. Blood stained the earth, his and theirs. The sharp metallic tang hung thick in the night air. And still Hunter stood, wounded, weary, but unyielding. He wasn't fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the future. Muscles burning, breath ragged and shallow, Hunter refused to falter. One wolf tried to slip past him, aiming straight for the cabin door. Hunter intercepted, slamming into the predator with unstoppable force, driving it back. His protective instinct surged like wildfire, overriding every stab of pain. The baby was everything, his mission, his purpose. After what felt like an eternity, the wolves began to retreat. Their leader, battered and limping, let out a guttural snarl, a dark promise of return, before melting back into the shadows. One by one, the others followed, their glowing eyes swallowed by the night. Hunter stood alone in the clearing, chest heaving, fur matted with blood and sweat. His body screamed for rest, but his senses stayed razor-sharp. Every nerve was alive, ears twitching for the faintest sign of danger. But the forest slipped back into uneasy silence, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves in the night breeze. Limping back to the cabin, each step slow and heavy, Hunter gently pushed open the door. His amber eyes immediately found the baby, still curled tightly in the folds of the blanket, safe. Relief crashed over him like a rising tide. He lowered himself beside the child, his massive body curling protectively around the fragile life. Every movement sent jolts of pain through him, but he ignored them. His duty wasn't finished, not yet. Resting his head on his paws, his gaze stayed locked on the cabin door. Ears flicking at every distant sound. He couldn't afford to let his guard down, not even for a second. The baby stirred, a faint whimper escaping its lips. Hunter nudged it gently with his nose, his warm breath soothing the child back to sleep. The long night stretched on, his wounds throbbed, his body ached, but Hunter refused to close his eyes. The baby was safe, for now, but the wolves would come again. At last, as dawn spilled soft light across the trees, Hunter allowed himself a brief moment to relax. The battle had left him battered and worn, but he had protected the baby, and that was all that mattered. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the cabin walls, casting fragile hope across the worn floor. They had survived another night, but this was only the beginning. The wolves weren't the only threat lurking in these woods. The baby's fragile cries could draw others, creatures with sharper claws, colder hearts. Hunter needed a plan, a way to ensure safety beyond the fragile shelter of this crumbling cabin. His amber eyes glinted with fierce determination as they settled on the sleeping child. No matter what came next, he would protect this life. They would survive together. The morning sun bathed the forest in golden light, but the peace was deceptive. Hunter stirred, fur matted with dried blood, each step sending sharp pain through his body. He rose, scanning the cabin for any disturbance. The baby still slept, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Hunter moved to the door, sniffing the cool morning air. The faint scent of blood still lingered on the breeze, but the predators were gone, for now. Still the cabin was exposed, fragile. If the wolves returned with greater numbers, or if another threat found them, he wouldn't survive another fight. He turned back to the baby, nudging it softly. The child stirred, tiny hands reaching for warmth. Hunter gave a quiet huff, a whisper of reassurance, then faced the door once more. He needed food, water, safety, not just for himself but for the baby. His strength was fading. Instinct alone wouldn't be enough for much longer. Outside, the forest pulsed with life. Birds called sharp, clear notes from the canopy above. The underbrush whispered with the scurry of small creatures. But Hunter ignored it all. His ears flicked, muscles coiled tight beneath his matted fur. Survival was the only thing that mattered now. A faint scent drifted on the breeze, clean, fresh, unmistakable. Water. Hunter moved cautiously, weaving between trees, paws sinking softly into the leaf-strewn earth. Every step was a reminder of how fragile their safety was. At last, he found it, a small, trickling stream, sunlight glinting off its clear surface like scattered diamonds. Hunter lowered his muzzle, drinking deeply. The cold water soothed his parched throat, rekindling a fragile spark of strength. But the baby needed water too. His eyes scanned the banks until they caught sight of a glint. Something unnatural nestled in the roots of a tree. A discarded plastic bottle, cracked but intact. A flicker of memory stirred, a strange human tool, foreign yet useful. Hunter padded forward carefully, grasping the bottle gently in his jaws. The plastic crinkled softly but held firm. He dipped it into the stream, filling it with precious water, tilting his head to steady the fragile container. Then, with careful steps, he began the slow trek back. Inside the cabin, soft cries echoed, small, trembling, urgent. Hunter hurried to the baby's side, setting the bottle down gently. He nudged the blanket, the child's tiny fists flailing, seeking warmth and comfort. The infant's face scrunched in distress, piercing whimpers breaking the silence. Hunter whined softly, unsure but desperate to soothe. Instinct took over. He licked the baby's cheek gently, warm and reassuring. The cries softened, dwindling to fragile whimpers. Carefully, Hunter tipped the bottle, letting a few precious drops trickle onto the infant's lips. The baby responded instinctively, mouth opening, drinking slowly. Relief washed through Hunter like a tide. He had done something right. His protective instincts had not failed, but this was only a temporary reprieve. They needed more: food, shelter, a plan. Then a sudden rustling outside snapped Hunter to alertness. His ears pricked sharply, muscles tensed like drawn steel. Heart pounding, he moved to the door, nose lifted high. Wolves. The scent was clear, chilling. They hadn't given up. A low growl rumbled from deep in Hunter's chest. He positioned himself firmly in the doorway, eyes scanning the shadowed tree line. This time, the wolves were smarter, hidden among the trees, silent and calculating. Hunter could feel their gaze, watching, waiting, testing. He couldn't let them linger. If they attacked again, his battered body wouldn't survive. He turned back to the baby, nudging it gently. The child's wide eyes met his, filled with unspoken understanding. And maybe fear. Staying was no longer an option. They had to move. They had to survive. Gently, Hunter picked up the baby, wrapped securely in its blanket. Cradling it carefully in his jaws, he stepped outside. His eyes locked on the darkness where the wolves lurked. A deep growl rumbled low as he took the first cautious steps away from the cabin. The wolves didn't move, not yet, but their presence pressed on him like an invisible weight. The forest seemed to close in tighter with every step. The baby's warmth against his chest gave Hunter strength, a reminder of why he could not stop, could not falter. His injured leg protested sharply with every movement, but he pressed on, ears swiveling constantly, listening for the slightest sign of pursuit. The wolves followed silently, always just out of sight, but never out of mind. Hunter's thoughts raced. He needed an advantage, a place to defend, a chance to survive the next attack. Then he saw it. A rocky outcrop rising jagged and steep above the forest floor. Not perfect, but better than the open ground. Elevated, defensible. Adjusting his grip on the baby, Hunter began the climb, claws scraping the rough stone as he pulled himself upward. Behind him, the wolves reacted. Snarls shattered the quiet as lean bodies surged forward through the trees. Hunter's pace quickened, pain flaring in every limb, breath ragged and desperate. He reached the top just as the first wolf lunged, its teeth snapping inches from his tail. Hunter whipped around, his massive frame a living wall of muscle and iron will. Behind him, the baby lay safe for now, but the fight was far from over. With a fierce, thunderous bark, Hunter shattered the morning's fragile silence. The sound rolled through the trees like a storm breaking. The wolves hesitated, eyes flicking between one another, weighing their next move. Hunter didn't wait. This was his stand. He could not, would not let them advance. Every instinct blazed alive. Pain faded into the background as his senses sharpened, primed for battle. He planted his powerful body against the jagged rock, a living shield over the child. The wolves spread into a semicircle, cutting off every escape. Their movements were deliberate, calculated, predatory. From the shadowed line stepped the lead wolf, larger, more battle-worn. Silver streaked through it. Fur, its eyes were cold, hard as flint. A low growl rumbled from deep in its throat, vibrating through the earth beneath them. Hunter didn't flinch, his lips peeled back in a savage snarl, teeth gleaming like sharpened knives. This was more than survival. This was defense of the fragile life behind him. The first wolf lunged, jaws snapping toward Hunter's throat. Hunter twisted sharply, his shoulder shoving the attacker off balance. The wolf stumbled, then recovered, circling back. Another wolf dashed in from the side, faster. Hunter turned with lightning speed, seizing it by the scruff and flinging it aside. A sharp yelp pierced the air. But the pack pressed on, relentless. The lead wolf stepped forward again, eyes locking with Hunter's. A breathless moment passed, a silent challenge, a battle of wills. Then, without warning, the pack surged forward in brutal unison. Hunter met them head-on. Muscle collided with fang. Fury met fury. His movements were a deadly dance, fluid, precise, forged by desperation. Each strike calculated, each blow purposeful. Blood flew through the air, snarls cracked like lightning bolts, but behind him, the baby remained untouched. Hunter fought with every last ounce of strength he had, and still, it was not enough, not yet, but he would not yield. Not until every threat was driven back into the shadows, not until the child was safe. Teeth clashed, guttural growls shredded the thick silence. The forest held its breath, the trees standing frozen, branches motionless, as if witnessing this brutal struggle beneath their canopy. One wolf lunged with terrifying precision, teeth sinking into Hunter's hind leg. Pain exploded through him like wildfire, but with a violent twist and a snarl raw with defiance, Hunter tore free, flinging the wolf aside before it could sink a crippling bite. Another blur of fur and fangs sprang at his throat, silent, swift, lethal. Hunter ducked just in time, snapping his powerful jaws down on the attacker's shoulder. The wolf yelped, stumbling away. But the fight was costing him. Dark blood soaked his coat in angry streaks. His breath came ragged and broken. Muscles burned, each movement slower, heavier. Still he stood, still he fought. Each time the snarling predators neared the child, a surge of primal strength shot through his weary limbs. That tiny heartbeat behind him, soft, fragile, was a flame he refused to let die. The baby whimpered, a faint, trembling cry, but it cut through the chaos like a bell. For a heartbeat, the wolves faltered, their assault momentarily halted by innocence in peril. Hunter seized the moment. With trembling limbs, he nudged the infant into a shallow crevice in the rock, a pocket of safety he prayed would hold, even if he fell. Bloodied and battered, Hunter turned back to the fight. The lead wolf snarled a sharp command, low and urgent, and the pack shifted like a dark tide. Their movements grew cautious, warier now, with eyes flashing a grudging respect. They hadn't expected such fierce resistance, but relentless, they were still. With a sudden snap of jaws, the lead wolf surged forward, fangs bared, eyes locked on Hunter like deadly missiles. Hunter dodged just barely, his reflexes dulled by pain and heavy blood loss. He lashed out with a massive paw, the impact throwing the wolf sideways across jagged rocks, leaving a slick crimson streak behind. But it rose again. All of them did. The wolves closed in tighter, hemming Hunter into a shrinking circle. He spun and pivoted endlessly, every breath a fight against the mounting exhaustion. His vision blurred. The trees around him warped and twisted at the edges. His body faltered beneath the brutal weight of battle. Still, even as the world spun dizzying and wild, his spirit remained unbroken. He would not fall, not while the baby depended on him. Then a new sound broke through the chaos, not a growl, not a snarl, but the unmistakable crunch of boots on forest floor, heavy, deliberate, foreign. Hunter's ears shot upright, his whole body stiffened, straining to catch the source amid the tumult. The wolves froze too, ears flicking, muscles coiled tight in confusion. The sound grew louder, closer, and then Hunter caught it. Faint, but undeniable. A scent. Human. Through the thicket a figure emerged, rugged, weathered by time and wilderness, a rifle slung across broad shoulders, wary eyes scanning the grim tableau. His gaze landed on Hunter, the bloodied sentinel standing fiercely between helpless infant and snarling wolf pack. Time slowed, as if the forest itself held its breath. The man's eyes widened. Without hesitation, he raised his rifle and fired into the sky. The thunderous crack tore through the stillness, louder than any wolf's growl. The forest recoiled. The wolves froze, their snarls swallowed by sudden alarm as the sharp echo rolled through the trees. A second shot rang out, closer, steadier. That was enough. One by one, the wolves began to retreat, yellow eyes blazing with frustration, bodies melting back into the shadows of the wild. Hunter stayed rooted, chest heaving with ragged breaths. Blood dripped steadily from torn flesh, soaking the rocky earth beneath him. Still he stood guard over the crevice, unwilling to believe the danger had passed. The man moved closer, slow, cautious, rifle lowered but every muscle taut. Hunter growled low and deep, a rumble like distant thunder, his eyes locked on the stranger, heavy with distrust. Not yet, not after everything. But something in the man's calm steadiness gave him pause, a softness behind the wary gaze. "Easy, boy," the man said gently, voice steady and soothing, as if speaking to a soldier battered by war rather than a snarling beast. "I'm not here to hurt you." Hunter's growl faded, though his body remained stiff, trembling not only from exhaustion, but sheer will to stay upright. The man knelt slowly, setting down his rifle, raising open hands in peace. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" he murmured, almost to himself. But you held the line. You protected that little one. Hunter sniffed carefully. No fear, no lies, only genuine concern. He shifted back just enough to give the man room. The man moved with reverence, gently lifting the baby into his arms. The child stirred, whimpered faintly, then softened, soothed by the warmth and steady heartbeat of another. "You're a hero, you know that," the man whispered, eyes flicking to Hunter. "You saved this baby's life." The words struck deep within Hunter. His legs gave way, and he crumpled to the earth, finally surrendering to exhaustion. His sides heaved, his strength finally spent. The man stepped closer, placing a tender hand on Hunter's blood-matted head. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "Let's get you both somewhere safe." Cradling the baby close, the man turned toward the woods, toward safety. Summoning a last reserve of strength, Hunter forced himself up. His body trembled with each step, but his eyes never left the child. He would follow. He had to. "You're not about to let your guard down, are you?" the man said with a small, knowing smile tugging at his lips. "I can't say I blame you. I've never seen anything quite like this." Carefully, he set the baby down and wrapped the tiny bundle in a thicker blanket, then turned back to Hunter. "Let me see if I can find you something to eat," he said, moving toward a modest kitchen corner. Hunter's ears perked sharply at the word eat, but he didn't move. His eyes never left the baby, as if afraid the child might disappear the moment he looked away. The man rifled through a cupboard and pulled out a can of dog food and a bowl. The metallic pop of the can opening sent a warm, rich scent floating through the cabin. "Here you go," he said softly, placing the bowl within reach. "You've earned this." Hunter hesitated, instinct holding him frozen, despite the gnawing hunger twisting in his belly. Then slowly, he stepped forward and lowered his head to sniff the offering. It wasn't much, but enough to soothe the aching emptiness. He ate carefully, ears twitching at every creak and shadow, eyes flicking between the man and the baby. Hours passed, and the tense edge in the cabin softened. The man moved with care, respecting Hunter's space, tending the fire and keeping the baby warm. Hunter, though still watchful, finally allowed himself to lie curled near the couch, his body a protective shield around the fragile little one. His eyes never fully closed, ears twitching at every groan and whisper of the old wooden walls. The man settled into a nearby chair, his gaze heavy with thought as he watched the unlikely pair. "You're not just any dog, are you?" he said quietly, breaking the silence. "There's more fight in you than most folks I've met." Hunter gave no response, his focus unwavering on the baby. Yet the man's words lingered in the warm air, a silent acknowledgement of the bond already growing between them. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying the promise of another cold night. But inside, the cabin held warmth, safety, and the fragile beginnings of trust. Hunter's muscles loosened, his breathing steadied as the fire cracked softly in the hearth. For the first time in days, peace settled. A fleeting, precious calm amid the chaos of their journey. The baby's tiny hand twitched in sleep. Hunter let out a low, contented sigh, his heart swelling with a feeling long forgotten, hope. Morning light filtered through cracks in the cabin walls, painting pale gold streaks across the room. Hunter's eyes blinked open, ears twitching at a faint rustle outside. The fire had faded to glowing embers. The cabin was quiet, save for the soft, steady breaths of the baby nestled tightly on the couch. The man stirred in his chair, stretching with a groan. His eyes met Hunter's, and a weary smile broke across his face. "Morning, buddy. Looks like we made it through the night." Hunter didn't move, still curled protectively near the baby. The sense of man, child, and dying fire filled the air, calm and reassuring. Until a new scent drifted in on the breeze, his body tensed immediately. The man caught the change too. Hunter's ears stood straight, eyes locked on the cabin door. "What is it?" the man asked softly, rising. He moved to the window and peered into the clearing. At first, nothing, just trees swaying, shadows flickering over frost-hardened ground. Then movement. A shape darted low and fast between the trees. Another, and a third, wolves, sleek bodies weaving silently, noses pointed toward the cabin. "Hunter," the man whispered, voice tight with tension. Hunter's low growl rumbled in reply. The wolves stepped from the tree line, eyes glowing with hunger. Hunter rose, muscles coiling, planting himself between the door and the baby. The man stepped back from the window, mind racing. He grabbed a heavy piece of firewood from the hearth, gripping it tightly. "Looks like we've got company," he said, voice steady. "Stay close." The wolves circled the clearing like shadowy phantoms, tongues flicking, teeth bared in guttural growls that echoed through the still morning. "Hunter," growled back, teeth flashing, stepping forward to meet the challenge. The man placed a steadying hand on Hunter's tense shoulder. "Easy, boy. Let's not rush into this." A sharp whimper broke from the baby, snapping the room's fragile calm like a live wire. Hunter's ears flicked back instantly, protective instincts igniting like wildfire. He let out a sharp, warning bark, a raw, resonant sound that sliced through the stillness, spilling beyond the cabin walls. Outside, the wolves froze. Their ears twitched, bodies frozen in a moment of suspended threat. The man's breath caught. He knew they couldn't let the wolves close, not with the baby here. Kneeling beside the fire, he grabbed a half-burned log and blew gently on the glowing embers until sparks sparked into flame, sending flickers of warm light and curling smoke curling upward. The sudden flare made the wolves hesitate. "I've got an idea," the man muttered, eyes meeting Hunter's. "But if it doesn't work, you'll have to hold them off." Hunter remained rooted by the door, growling low and fierce, a living barrier. The man grabbed an empty tin can from a shelf, then dumped in a handful of rusty nails and screws. The clatter of metal echoed sharply in the quiet cabin. He shoved the can into the fire. The metal hissed and crackled as it heated, sending out sparks that danced like tiny fireflies. Outside, the wolves edged closer. The lead wolf, a silver-furred beast with piercing yellow eyes, stepped into the clearing, exuding dominance and fearlessness. It barked sharply, and the pack fanned out behind it, closing in steadily. Hunter barked back ferociously, pressing every ounce of strength against the door, daring them to come. The wolves faltered for a heartbeat. But the lead wolf didn't hesitate. It took another step forward, muscles rippling, ready to leap. The man grabbed the now searing hot can with a thick cloth. The nails rattled inside like a cage of knives. He hurled it out the door. It spun through the air, landing with a thunderous clang. Then, explosion. Heated nails shot out in every direction, smoke and ash, billowing in a choking cloud. The wolves yelped, scattering wildly in confusion and pain. The lead wolf snarled, narrowing its fierce gaze at the cabin. But even it stepped back, unsettled by the sudden chaos. Hunter barked again, throwing his full weight against the door, pushing it closed with a grunt. The man locked it fast, both of them panting hard, every nerve stretched tight, ears straining for the faintest sign of retreat. Outside, the wolves lingered at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing like embers from the shadows. One by one, they slipped away into the trees. The lead wolf was last, its burning stare lingering a moment longer before vanishing into the wilderness. The man sagged against the cabin wall, firewood slipping from his grasp. "That was too close," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. His gaze fell on Hunter, still tense, breathing hard but steady. "You okay, boy?" Hunter didn't answer, eyes locked on the door long after the danger had passed. After a slow moment, he turned and padded back to the couch, nudging the baby gently, checking the little one's breathing. The baby was quiet now, soft and steady. The man knelt beside them, resting a gentle hand on Hunter's bloodied head. "You did good," he whispered. "We both did." The cabin settled into silence, smoke curling in lazy tendrils from the fire. For now, they were safe. But both man and dog knew the danger hadn't vanished. They would need to be ready. The baby stirred again, a tiny hand slipping free from the blanket and grasping blindly at the empty air. Hunter nudged the blanket closer with a careful nose, tucking the child back with quiet tenderness. The man watched in awe, once more reminded of the fierce protector beneath the bloodied coat. "You're incredible, you know that?" he said softly, breaking the silence. Hunter's ears twitched, but he didn't look up. His focus remained solely on the baby. Outside, the forest was unnervingly still. The wolves were gone, for now, but the man knew better than to trust silence. Predators always lingered, waiting for a moment of weakness. He rose and paced the cabin, checking every corner, every shadowed nook. The door was thin, the walls barely holding. If the wolves returned, holding them out wouldn't be easy. "We can't stay here forever," he murmured, mostly to himself. "We need to find a safer place, somewhere stronger, somewhere real shelter." Hunter finally looked up, amber eyes meeting the man's. It was as if he understood the fragility of their position. With a soft breath, he rose, body looming protectively over the baby. The man stopped pacing, resolve hardening. The nearest town was miles through dense forest. The journey would be perilous, but staying here was no longer an option. "I'll need supplies," he said, glancing at the cabin's sparse remains. Rusted tools, a moth-eaten blanket, a handful of empty jars. Not much, but it would have to do. He lifted the tools one by one, feeling the weight in his hands. The heavy wrench was a solid, reassuring presence, something he could rely on if danger came calling. Hunter padded quietly over, his nose brushing gently against the man's outstretched hand. That simple touch grounded him, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this. "Yeah," the man said with a faint, tired smile. "We'll figure it out, together." The baby stirred, a soft cry breaking the moment's fragile calm. Instantly, Hunter's head snapped around, ears tilting as he assessed the child's distress. The man knelt beside them, cradling the tiny bundle with careful, practiced hands. "Shh, it's okay," he murmured, rocking gently, his voice steady but filled with quiet urgency. The crying eased to faint whimpers, tugging at the man's heart with every soft sound. "We have to move," he said, glancing down at Hunter. "This little one can't survive another cold night out here." Hunter barked softly in reply, his tail giving a brief, hopeful wag before he turned toward the door. The man adjusted the makeshift sling, a patchwork of the tattered blanket, securing the baby close against his chest. One hand gripped the wrench, the other steadied the fragile child. He pulled open the door. Outside, the air was sharp and still, the early morning light soft and pale as it filtered through the trees. Hunter slipped ahead, nose low to the ground, ears twitching and alert. The man followed close behind, eyes scanning the forest's edge, every sense stretched tight. The path was rugged, scattered with fallen branches and slick patches of mud that threatened each step. But they pressed forward, driven by an urgent need to find sanctuary. Deeper into the woods, the trees thickened, their branches arched overhead, weaving into a shadowed canopy that both sheltered and whispered warnings. The air grew cooler, heavier, as if the forest itself was watching, waiting. Hunter's pace quickened, his instincts leading them true. He paused often, nose lifted to sniff the shifting scents, then pressed onward. The man trusted Hunter's senses far more than his own. After what felt like an hour, they reached a small stream. Water bubbled over smooth stones, clear and inviting. The man knelt by the bank, gently lowering the baby onto a bed of moss, soft and dry. He cupped his hands and drew up cold water, bringing it to his lips with a grateful sigh. The brief coolness was a balm to his weary body. Hunter drank eagerly, tongue lapping the fresh water. When finished, he nudged the baby's blanket with a tender nose. The man smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "We're lucky to have you, friend," he said, scratching behind Hunter's ears. The dog leaned into the touch, eyes closing in a moment of pure contentment. But the peace shattered with a sudden rustle nearby, a sharp, urgent sound that snapped them all to attention. Hunter's ears shot forward, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. His muscles coiled, ready to defend. The man gripped the wrench tighter, eyes narrowing as he scanned the thick brush. "Stay close," he whispered, planting himself between the sound and the baby. The rustling grew louder, closer. Hunter stepped forward, teeth bared in a silent, fierce warning. The man's heart hammered, every muscle tense and ready. Then a figure burst through the underbrush. It wasn't a predator. It was a woman, disheveled, breathless, her wide eyes swimming with fear and something else, relief. She froze as she took in the scene. Man, dog, and baby, all poised on the edge of danger. "Please," she gasped, "I'm not here to hurt you. I saw the smoke from your cabin and thought maybe someone could help me." Hunter's growl softened, but didn't vanish entirely, his gaze cautious and wary. The man lowered the wrench, slowly, eyes sharp. She was worn, Clothes torn, dirt streaked across her face, but there was honesty there, raw and desperate. "What do you need?" he asked, voice steady but cautious. The woman glanced over her shoulder, trembling. "There's something out there. I've been running all night. Please, I just need a safe place to rest." Hunter pressed close to the man, brushing his warm nose against the leg in his silent question. The man exhaled deeply, eyes flicking down at the sleeping baby cradled against his chest. "All right," he said at last, voice edged with caution. "But if you try anything—" "I won't," Leah interrupted quickly, raising her hands in a clear gesture of peace. "I swear." He gave a slow nod, motioning her forward. Hunter stayed close, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the stranger. The man's mind spun with doubt. Could he trust her? For now there was no choice. They had to move as one. The forest pressed in around them, heavy silence thick between their footsteps. Hunter positioned himself like a living shield, powerful and vigilant. His gaze flicked often toward Leah, who followed a careful few paces behind, moving softly, almost reverently, to avoid alarming the dog. Finally, the man broke the silence, voice low and deliberate. "What's your name?" "Leah," she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was hiking with a group, but we got separated." Her eyes darted nervously between the trees. "Something was chasing me." Hunter's ears pricked, his entire body tensing as his gaze swept the shadowed woods. "What kind of something?" the man pressed. Leah swallowed hard, shaking her head, voice trembling. "I don't know. I didn't get a clear look, just eyes in the dark. And sounds, fast, relentless." Her arms wrapped tightly around herself, fear raw and palpable. The man exchanged a glance with Hunter, who let out a low, guttural whine, as if sharing the same unease. Adjusting the baby in the sling, protective instincts flaring, the man spoke with quiet resolve. "If it comes back, we'll deal with it. But for now, we keep moving." Leah nodded, quickening her pace. The forest grew darker with every step. Towering trees closed in, blotting out the pale morning light. The path twisted and tangled beneath their feet, gnarled roots and jagged stones threatening every step. Every sound, twigs snapping, birds calling, felt magnified, charged with an unseen menace. Suddenly Hunter froze, his body went rigid. A deep, guttural growl rumbled low in his throat. The man stopped cold, eyes narrowing. "What is it?" he whispered. Leah's eyes widened in terror. "Is it them?" The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then came the haunting howl, long, eerie, and filled with warning. Another answered from the shadows, closer. Hunter's growl deepened, his fur rose in sharp spikes. The man's fingers tightened around the wrench. "Leah, stay close to me!" Hunter stepped forward, eyes blazing, fixed on the shadows. A pair of glowing yellow eyes appeared first, then another and another, dozens emerging silently from the trees. Wolves, sleek, lethal predators moving with predatory grace. "We don't want trouble," the man muttered, eyes darting between the baby and Hunter. "Protect them." Hunter didn't hesitate. He planted himself firmly between the wolves and his family, growling fiercely. The lead wolf snarled, a snarl full of hunger and challenge, and lunged. Hunter met it head-on, fur and teeth colliding in a blur of raw power. The pack circled, tightening the noose. One wolf darted toward the baby, but the wrench crashed down with a sickening crack. The wolf yelped, staggering back before vanishing into the shadows. Hunter wrestled fiercely with the lead wolf, biting and clawing despite his exhaustion. Another wolf tried to flank him. He spun sharply, teeth flashing in a fierce snarl, striking with desperate precision, and the battle was only just beginning. The man swung the wrench again, narrowly missing another wolf lunging from the side. "Leah, take the baby!" he shouted, thrusting the sling toward her. She gasped, face pale with fear. "Take it! Go! I'll hold them off!" Leah hesitated. Then the urgency in the man's voice shattered her doubt. She grabbed the sling, cradling the baby tightly against her chest. "I'll wait for you," she cried, tears streaming down her face as she stumbled backward. Hunter, locked in a brutal battle with two snarling wolves, let out a fierce, defiant bark, unyielding despite the exhaustion and pain. The man stepped forward, sliding in beside Hunter. "You're not doing this alone, buddy," he muttered, voice low but steady. They moved as one, a seamless force forged through desperation and grit. The wolves lunged and snapped, their numbers overwhelming, but Hunter and the man held firm. Blow after punishing blow, they pushed the pack back until the snarls faded into pained whimpers and the wolves melted into the shadows. Silence settled over the forest once more, broken only by ragged breaths. Hunter's body trembled, fresh scratches marred his.